Haidong! So in this video, we are going to be talking about how to hold the sword and how to cut more effectively with different grips. So the first thing is actually holding the sword at the top and bottom. So again, this is probably something that your instructor taught you very first day. Again, holding with your left hand all the way to the bottom of the grip and your right hand all the way up against the guard. So why is this necessarily good advice? So for a couple of reasons. So for one, it gives you a little bit of leverage, right? So if I'm here, I can engage the left and right hands a little bit more to give me a little bit more follow through, right? So I can have that leverage, have that nice acceleration, and be able to draw through pretty effectively. Additionally, you can also use it to counter a little more effectively. You can also use it to deflect. In general, having more leverage is obviously better than holding it way up here, or like, this kind of grip, which I've seen in film, which is why it's only in film, not in actual sparring. If you ever try to spar with this, you will almost certainly die. So versus, if you hold it on top and bottom, you get pretty good leverage this way. So you can also deflect pretty happily that way. You can twist and change the angle pretty happily. So the very first piece of advice, and this is something that is canonical with the Federation as well, is just hold the sword at top and bottom of the sword. So another thing, which is really nice about this, is if you're holding it at top and bottom, you're going to be able to get a lot more reach with your left hand. So for example, if you do things like from Shimsong, right, you have that deep, long range strike this way, you obviously get a lot more reach, right? So as opposed to if I was holding the way up here, yes, I might have more control over the angle and stuff like that, but my reach is a lot less extended versus if I'm way down here. Again, I can extend pretty happily, pretty much from any direction without hitting the floor. Really good reach. So also from Sanctu 7, for example, you have that round head, deep range cut. And one more thing is you can also have, because your right hand is right behind the guard, that will give you some sort of protection. So an extreme example of this is if you've ever seen historical fencers using one-handed, you notice that they actually keep this, right? So they're actually going to be using the guard to actually protect themselves a lot more, which makes sense, right? So again, for Gumdosa, our guards are pretty small in general, but still enough, right? So if we have another sword coming in at this angle, I catch it, I can still grind in and have the sword protect me as I cut through into the cranium. So in general, using this guard, so it's not used that often in forms, but definitely in combat, you can definitely use the guard a lot more to actually catch and counter with the sword. So on that point, so you might see other martial arts actually holding it kind of closer up this way. And so before we cast judgment or anything like that, it's like, all right, well, clearly not going to get as much reach if you're holding left hand down here. The justification for that, just so we're all well aware, is that for a half tang sword, the tang actually ends about here. So they're actually going to be holding it to actually, again, prolong the life of the hilt, right? So if they're holding it down here, they're giving extra support to where the tang is actually going to be scraping, well, should be scraping, but it's rubbing up against the actual hilt. So that way actually gives, again, a little more longevity to the sword. So yes, this may not help with actual cutting, but will extend the life of your sword. But for us, we're going to hold it on the bottom because this is going to be, again, more canonical with the Federation. And again, for all the reasons I talked about before, it gives you a lot more, again, reach, leverage, and all that kind of fun stuff. So we talked about the location of where to hold the sword. Let's also discuss the actual orientation of your hands. So one of them that I'm going to call is called a hammer grip. So this way. So again, you may not actually hold a hammer this way. It's just something that I've heard it called, and I more or less agree with it. So it's more or less you're holding it such that your hand is actually perpendicular to the hilt, and that's going to be pretty much on both hands this way. This is going to be in contrast to something that, again, I've heard called this, and I actually quite like it, the handshake grip. So again, if you're kind of reaching out and like handshaking someone, you're not going to handshake someone this way, you're going to curl your fingers in a little bit this way, and this is going to be called a handshake grip. So let me first talk about the hammer grip, and then we're going to talk about the handshake grip. As with everything else, always practice these things yourself as well, so get your own opinion on the matter. So first, let's try the hammer grip, right? So holding it like so. So first, just be aware of your body, right? So if you're holding it this way, what do you feel? So what I feel, my right elbow feels pretty extended, right? So even to the point that it might be even hyperextended if I'm trying to do weird things with it. Additionally, if my left hand is here, notice I have a really steep angle between the hilt and the left hand. So you might see this in different martial arts, using it for different purposes, right? So for example, in some longsword, you can actually do this a lot more, actually push yourself into a better leverage position this way. But it's not intended to cut. So what I'd recommend, so again, be very, very careful as you do this. So assume the hammer grip and try to do a few cuts, right? So as you do this, so I'm feeling again my right elbow is again hyperextended or extended to the point that's not comfortable. And also my left hand isn't doing that much. If anything, I actually feel a little bit of strain in the left hand. So as you're here, so as you try to do your cuts, notice the extent of your range, right? So you might still be able to get a good couple cuts in, but the range is actually fairly limited, right? So if I really try to reach out more, I definitely feel my elbow hyperextend. My left hand's not doing that much as I cut down this way. So additionally, if you're actually making contact with a target, an opponent, a tower target or whatnot, and you make contact, you're gonna feel the vibration go into your elbow and also again into your wrist. So pretty much anywhere where there's a hard angle, that's where your body's gonna be reacting. So if you do this and you make contact, it's gonna hurt. Like after a while, you're gonna start feeling your elbow's a little bit janky and your wrist is also a little bit shot. In general, that's not gonna be good. So, and finally, so one thing I would like you to think about is as you cut, feel again which muscle groups are activating as you cut. If it's the top of your shoulder, that's not good, right? So for a couple of reasons, so if you're activating the top of your shoulder, first of all, you're more likely to engage in the turtle cut, as I call it, where you kind of pop your head forward, cut back again, which is first of all not good for your neck, and also it's not good for your cut. Additionally, if you're cutting with the top of your shoulder, again, you're not gonna be extending as much. It's gonna be a lot more strain on your chest. And also it's just gonna be a lot more smaller muscles engaged as opposed to into your deep shoulders. So if you think about your scapula, think about the muscles right behind the scapula activating as you try to cut. And it's very difficult if you're doing it in a hammer grip. So let's talk about the handshake grip. So if we have the handshake grip here, so again, one we can think of it is literally just holding out your hand like you're about to handshake someone, you're shaking it, and then someone just like sneaks a sword in your hand. There we go, that's the handshake grip. Another way you can think of it is having your forearm on a 135 or 3/4 angle with your sword. So why this angle first of all? So first of all, just because of the geometry of your hand and geometry of just the human body, this is pretty much as stable as you're going to be able to get it. Any less so again, a steeper angle, you're going to have a little more shearing in your wrist. Any less, and just your body does not have any power behind it. So this is just naturally, just because of the way the human body is, the human geometry, this is going to be your best angle for stability. So one thing you can see, there's a little bit of a dimple in your wrist here. So if it's holding at a nice angle, it's going to be a nice dimple. Whereas if you extend it and it fills in, this means there's probably going to be some damage if you make contact with a cut this way. So holding on a nice 45-degree angle on both hands this way. So first of all, I can extend pretty happily, right? So again, I could just keep going this way if I want to. Again, I might be flexing this, but I could just extend to my heart's delight, right? Additionally, my elbows are fine, right? I don't feel any particular strain in the left hand. I don't feel my right elbow hyperextending. Everything's pretty comfortable, right? Additionally, when you cut, again, I can extend out a lot further, right? So this is handshake grip, and this is going to be hammer grip. Again, that might not seem like much right now, but when you're sparring and you're able to get that cut out, a little bit, that extra distance will be to your benefit. This gives you a lot more reach, again, with those left-handed cuts, if that's the way you spar. And also, this gives you also more dexterity with your right hand. So if you were to let go of the left, this is a lot easier to manipulate than this. This is going to be kind of like a swinging motion. Again, this is good for pushing deflections, but it's not necessarily good for like the smaller things. So again, if you're thinking about in form 5, for example, this motion, right? Parry or just moving around the sword depending on your interpretation. This is actually pretty easy, again, if you start with a normal grip this way, it might shift into a hammer grip, as opposed to if you start hammer grip, you're just kind of gearing around the left hand. So another idea with this one is if you're holding it with a handshake grip, you also can guide with the left hand a lot more. So remember, your left hand is supposed to be the powerhouse of your cut, and the right hand is supposed to be the guidance, right? So if you want to think about, again, this is kind of crossing metaphors, but the hammer and the scalpel, right? Or if you want to think the motor and the rudder. So this is the powerhouse. I should be able to cut very powerfully with the left hand, and this is where I want to make those very precise strikes, right? So if I want to striking this way, or coming in, thrusting this way, that's going to be right hand, versus left hand is going to be where your powerhouse is. So if you're trying to cut, so I might even face you this way, if you're trying to cut this way, right, with a hammer grip, the left hand has to do a lot more work to kind of like compensate for where the right hand is, as opposed to if we're in a handshake grip. It's a lot easier to cut. One more final benefit, maybe not final, there might be even more things I haven't discussed here, but one more benefit for the handshake grip as opposed to the hammer grip is actually just drawing the sword, right? So again, this is going to be something that we're going to be discussing in a future video, but in general, so I'm trying to draw the sword, I'm drawing it from hammer grip, that's as far as I'm going, right? Even if I use the left hand to draw the sword back, right, bad. It's just generally bad, and trying to move it into normal grip, I have to like shift it around. In general, it's not that good. So if you're drawing in this way, right, so notice you can engage the pinky, and going to naturally go into that 45 grip, right? As opposed to if I try to do the same with a hammer grip, it's going to be twisting around in all sorts of weird directions. Versus, again, if I activate the pinky a little bit more, if I draw in, draw, bang, right? It's going to be a lot more effective, and we're in that nice handshake grip. As with everything, take everything with a grain of salt. So obviously if your master says to do something this way, do it that way, right? Now obviously, the point of these videos is to introduce ideas to you, right? So if you're trying these different grips, see how your body reacts, right? So your body might react very differently to these different grips than my body does, because over the past decade plus, I've been holding my sword, the handshake grip, pretty consistently. I haven't really varied it that much. So it could just be that my body is now accustomed to the handshake grip as opposed to necessarily trying new things. So definitely try 2 grips, see how your body reacts, and then take the best of both worlds, right? So see what works with the hammer, see what works with the handshake, and go with that.